A pleasant day to everyone here. I welcome you all to the webinar on the art of writing successful research project proposals. Today we have the eminent professor Dr. Anita R. Warrior with us. I welcome you, ma'am, and I welcome Dr. Rajashekhar, convener of Research Connect Forum, and Dr. Helen, coordinator, and I welcome you all, the research scholars. Dear participants, as attendance is compulsory to all research scholars for this meeting, you are all requested to fill up the attendance and feedback form, which will be posted in the chat box at the end of the presentation. As we directly move into the lecture session, I invite Ms. Vinolan Sylvia, research scholar, Department of Mathematics, to introduce our guest speaker of the webinar.
Thank you, Joy. An amazing morning to everyone gathered virtually here. I'm honored to introduce the chief speaker of the day, Dr. Anita R. Warrior. Ma'am is currently working as an associate professor at the Department of Physics, AMIT. Prior to this, she worked as Institute Postdoctoral Fellow at the Photonics Laboratory, Department of Physics, IIT Madras, for over 3 years. She was also a visiting fellow at the Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research. Ma'am received her undergraduate degree in physics from Union Christian College, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kerala, and her PG degree from Cochin University of Science and Technology, Kerala. In the same university, she started her research in design and development of photothermal techniques for solar cell analysis and received her doctorate in 2011. While pursuing her research there, she was awarded the JRF UGC Research Fellowship in Sciences for Meritorious Students Award. Ma'am has 29 quality publications with 290 citations and a H-index of 8 to her credit. Currently, there are 3 scholars pursuing research under her guidance. Ma'am has been the project investigator for over 5 projects from various funding agencies like the DST, BRNS, and CSIR. Acknowledging her research, she was awarded the DST SERB Early Career Research Award. It is indeed an honor and privilege to have such an eminent person share her mind with us. Over to you, dear ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Vinodan. Thank you, Dr. Rajashekhar, Dr. Helen, and all the research scholars for having me here and patiently waiting to listen to what I have to say. So I think I can share my screen now. So please let me know
Yes,
if
ma'am.
I hope I'm audible well enough, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just share my screen. You can see my PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Right, so I have made it full screen. I hope it is well visible. So I'm also like to apologize. This talk was meant to be presented yesterday, but unfortunately due to certain emergency, I couldn't do that. So thank you all once again so that you made time on the Saturday to listen to this. So let me start with this. So today we are going to talk about the art of writing successful research project proposals. You all know very well why it is very significant to have this knowledge, of course, to get funding for your research work. And I see majority of you are research scholars. This is it's this forum meant for research scholars and faculties. And as a research scholars, you may have the question, why you need to write this proposal? Because when you go through most of the funding agencies' criteria, you will see that it is for people, faculties with PhDs who are uh, recruited in a regular employment. So naturally that question can come to you, why a research scholar, you have to learn this way of writing a proposal. But I must tell you, it is something to be learned at the stage when you do PhD. Most of us, what we don't care about it when we do our PhD, and only when we go and join somewhere as a faculty, we start thinking about it, right? By that time we learn this art and we learn the way of communicating our ideas in a better way, we will lose 2 or 3 years. So it is always better as a PhD scholar, you train yourself to write good project proposals, right? When I was doing my PhD, of course, my guide used to ask me to write proposals. So it's kind of at that period itself, we were like hesitant to write the proposals, but he made sure at least all the research scholars wrote at least 2 or 3 proposals in their period. Right from the beginning, the first year or second year, we were asked to write proposals. We may get the funding or we may not get the funding. It may not be evaluated sometimes. The guide himself may not send it to the funding agency, but still he made sure that we all write proposals. Even when people had fellowships, we were made to write. And most of the time, this is what we faced. There is no funding, right? We send the proposal to different agencies, but as a reply, what we get is your proposal is not good enough. They are not right time funding this particular area of work. This was something which we have heard so many times. So getting funding for your research idea is important. At the same time, it is difficult and requires right amount of training and practice to achieve some success in it, right? So let's look into what the famous basketball champion Michael Jordan used to say. He has missed more than 9,000 shots in his career. He has lost 300 games. 26 times he was expected to win a game and he lost it. He failed again and again and again. And that's where he succeeded. Which means, why I say this here is, you may write many proposals and there are chances that all of them will get rejected. But you must not be demotivated, but you have to keep yourself motivated to write the proposal again and again, right? But don't do this. I have seen many people doing this. They write a proposal, that proposal gets rejected. The only work they will do is they will send the same proposal without even rereading it again to another funding agency. And what do they expect? They expect that the other funding agency will accept it? No, right? Your proposal got rejected because something was lacking in it. Of course, it was a rejection, but you need to re-evaluate your proposal. You have to learn from your mistakes. That's the first step. You write a proposal, it may be your first one or second one. You submit it to agency, there are 90% chance that it will get rejected. And when it gets rejected, do not go into a mode of desperation or feel like I do not want to write anymore, or just keep trying like without any focus, you keep on throwing the stone randomly. You take the same proposal, send it to 100 funding agency and expect at least somewhere it will get accepted. No, don't do that. Once your project gets rejected, learn why it got rejected. You have to understand the reason why it got rejected. Go through that proposal again, go through what the funding agencies needs were, try to identify where were all you were lacking. There must be something wrong in your proposal. So you have to learn that art first of identifying your own mistakes and rewrite the proposal in such a way that another funding agency may accept it, or even the same funding agency, right? So that's the most important part. You may fail 100 times, but every single time you have to learn from your mistake. That's only then the 101st time you will win, right? So let's go into the topic without further of my advices and motivation talk. What is a research proposal? So a research proposal is something like you have a brilliant idea, which of course we all think all our ideas are brilliant. And this brilliant idea, you should be able to communicate it to another person, right? So how effectively or beautifully you convey your idea to the other person is what makes a good research proposal. So I can say it is a systematic and organized representation of your research idea so that it will get the desired support in form of either equipment or funding so that you can further carry out that work, right? Your idea can get manifested. To make an idea manifest into some form, you need funding, you need the support of other experts in that area, so that somebody accepts it and agrees to fund it. You have to represent it in a systematic and well organized way, answering all the 5 questions I have mentioned here: what, why, how, when, and how much. The first question, what it means is, what is your research idea? Why you want to pursue that particular research idea? And how are you going to pursue it? What is the method you're going to follow, right? When will you do it? Like, what is the duration required for you to achieve your target? You have a idea, means that there is some kind of a outcome to it. So how long will you take to get success in the project, or so to achieve your target? And the final one, which is the most important one, how much of support do you need for achieving this particular target, right? So every proposal, you will have to answer these 5 questions. What is your research idea? Why do you want to pursue that research idea? How will you follow this research idea, and how long will you take to achieve your target, and how much support you need for achieving the target? Now again, why do you want to write a proposal? The basic reason is, which is the real reason, okay, apart from the monetary part of it and your career upliftment, the real reason why you need to write a proposal is, say we all are pursuing our post graduation, then we did our PhD. It's because of the research interest we have, right? There is something within you which makes you pursue that problem. It gives you a kind of satisfaction when you have solved the problem, right? So that is a kind of happiness, right? You get happiness out of doing research. That is why we all do research. So research is not something which is going to stop with your PhD. It's going to be there with you throughout your career. So you do research only if it is going to make you happy. So happiness comes out when you are satisfactorily pursuing your research passion. And to pursue that research passion, you need funding, right? You need some support to pursue that passion. So that's the first reason why you are writing a proposal. The second reason, there is, as a scientist, there is a responsibility from you that you have to give something back to the society in terms of your knowledge. And if your knowledge has to take the form of some kind of a technology, right? It can be for the benefit of the environment, it can be for the people in around you. What is the benefit for the society from your research work? That is also going to give you a great satisfaction. You just do some research and mere paper publication is not going to make you happy, right? Of course, it's fine. It's fine up to a level, but beyond that, you do a research for 2 reasons. One is to follow your passion. Other is your responsibility to give back something to the society. These are the 2 major reasons which will make you want to write a proposal. And of course, to get the necessary funding, you have to convince the funding agency. So your proposal, you are writing your research idea in the form of a proposal so that the evaluators or the funding agency is convinced about its usefulness. Wait, I'll take the laser pointer. You'll convince the evaluators about the usefulness of your research and also the significance of your intended research work. So your proposal you're writing it to convince the funding agency, and also to convince the evaluators that the problem on which you're going to work is really worth pursuing. Something becomes worth pursuing only if it is going to produce a significant advancement, either a scientific advancement or technological advancement. So the proposal has to be such that it should convince the evaluators. You should be able to convince them that the problem you are going to work on is really worth pursuing. It should not be like you write something of your ideas, write blah 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 stories that this material I can use, this can be used for hundreds of applications. It can be used for sensors, it can be used for as a bioimplant. So many things are there. So that's not going to be convincing. You have to identify the exact problem and convince the evaluators that the problem you were trying to solve is worth taking. The funding agency is going to give you money, right? They are going to give you how much ever, maybe in lakhs or crores. The funding agency has to be satisfied that the problem you're going to pursue is important. And why do I call it as an art? So what is an art? Art is a form of expression, right? It's a form of expressing your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings. So definitely it has an emotion to it, or it comes within you. The same way a proposal has to come from within you. It should not be for anybody else's sake. It should not be for your guide. It should not be for satisfying the higher authorities. It cannot be for merely getting some monetary benefit. Of course, they are just like byproducts of it. But the main reason is the proposal or the problem, the intention to solve the problem should come within you. As it's going to come from within you, it is an art. And you call it as an art because it is expressed in a very clear way. It's going to talk to others. What was there in your head is going to, you're going to communicate with others, right? So the proposal is a way of communicating your brilliant research ideas to others who may not be experts, right? They may have strong basics. The evaluators who are going to approve your project, they may be strong in their basics, but they may not be experts because you are the expert. You have done specialization in that field. So you have to express that idea which you have framed in such a way that the evaluator should understand it very clearly. So it should be done artistically, not just writing some words with all technical jargons or high-tech terminologies. That's not going to help. You need to write in a very simple, concise, and precise way what you want to achieve, right? So that's why it is an art. See, if you are going to make an oral presentation, right? You're going to talk to a certain class of people. When they have the doubt, they can stop and ask you. They can interact with you, they can communicate with you. But when you are going to present your idea in the form of a written booklet, it's just a one-way communication. You have sent something to the funding agency, and a group of evaluators are going to look through your proposals. If it is not clear enough, the first they are getting thousands or 10,000s of proposal from all over India. So their immediate intention will be to reject it. So that's the first stage. You write a bad proposal, immediately it will get rejected. Right? It may sometimes go to 5 reviewers or may go to 10 reviewers also. So it is very important you write it in a clear way. So this 5 or 10 reviewers may be from different fields. They may not have all of them may not have the full expertise. So write your proposal in the best way, in a simple way, so that you have conveyed your research idea so that everyone can understand it. So don't fall into the trap called as a curse of expertise. You know what it is? So when you are becoming an expert in one field, let's say you are an expert in mathematics, and you are made to go and speak to an audience who are scholars in chemistry. What will happen if the Max professor talks completely in terms of mathematics alone? Nobody is going to understand. All may know he is using lots of jargons, but nobody is going to be interested in what he is saying. So nobody will want to approve what he is saying, right? So write it in a way that everyone understand and don't fall into the trap of being an expert in your field. Then the next important part is how will you choose your area? See, nowadays most of the projects are interdisciplinary, right? You cannot stick to a field of chemistry alone or physics or mathematics alone. You should be able to combine different areas. That is very important. So when you choose your, you don't have to always stick to one single area. Okay, suppose I say you have done your PhD or your MSc project in solar cells. It's not that you can be funded only by an agency who's going to support solar cells, right? Or you may be expert in partial differential equation. You don't have to wait for a funding agency to come, which is going to support the advancement in the area of partial differential equations. So you have to identify which area you want to propose based on two things. One is, so there are many funding agencies are there. You need to know what is the objective of the funding agency. For example, I can tell you DST Nano Mission is there, right? It's a funding scheme by Department of Science and Technology. The objective of this particular agency is to support nanotechnology projects which are of benefit to the society. They support all kind of nanotechnology, but only nanotechnology. So if you are going to write a proposal to them, say you are a solar cell expert, you have done you have made solar cells using several materials, such as you have made them with bulk silicon, you have made them with several thin films, etc. Suppose you propose a area solar cell project with your experience of as a silicon wafer expert. What do you think will happen to the proposal? Remember, you are sending it into a nano mission scheme. Definitely they will reject it because it is out of their scheme. Your project may be brilliant. Whatever you have told us should be very good, but the scheme can't fund you because it's out of their area. So what will you do there? We need to identify. You have the expertise in solar cells. And the funding agency is going to support only nanotechnology project. So what you can do is you can propose a nano material assisted solar cell, right? That's the way of bridging the gap between your area of expertise and the objective of the funder. Same way, a mechanical engineer who has expertise in automobiles, he can propose a project for nanomission by proposing some kind of nano coating which will be of use to his automobile, right? So that is, you have to be very critical and to identify how you can make the connect, right? So a mechanical engineer needn't wait, right? He doesn't have to wait like someday a funding agency will come which is going to support his area of expertise in the automobile technology, isn't it? So it is important that you may have one particular area of expertise. You should be able to connect with the objective of the funding agency. That connection is very, very important, and which I can call it as you have to bridge the gap between your expertise and the objective of the funder. And anytime you want to ask me something, please do ask. I feel like I'm talking to myself. There is very little interaction. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, ma'am. We are
Okay.
enjoying.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Right. There are so many funding agencies. You all would have applied a lot. You can see there is Department of Science and Technology is there, BRNS is there, Department of Atomic Energy, SERB India is there, DRDO, MNRE, CSIR, ICMR, ISRO. There are so many funding agencies, and all these funding agencies have several schemes also. Some are meant to support young scientists, some are for regular schemes, some are for minor projects for the works which is already being done. So before you send a proposal, go through what is the agenda of the particular funding agency. Whom do they want to fund? What kind of work they want to fund? Are they going to fund the basic research, or are they going to fund some kind of advanced research like finding the God particle, Higgs boson, etc.? Or are they going to fund something which is of impact to the society, such as treatment of environmental waste, for the supporting the renewable energy? So these are the schemes which are very important for solving the climate issues, for solving the global warming problem, for reducing pollution. Each agency will have an agenda and an objective. And mostly, if you are reading the newspapers regularly, you will know every year or every 5 years, government will have a plan for technological development in our nation. Right now, the plan or their interest is in energy sector and also for solving the environmental problems. So most of the agencies you look, they may have a certain amount of funding for these particular subjects. So almost all stream people can work in the energy sector and environment sectors. So they want to divert everyone into these sectors so that India as a nation can develop much better. We can solve our energy crisis, the environmental issues we are facing. So like that, every 5 years, or maybe I'm not very sure, but every few years, they keep on changing their agenda. So it is important that before you send a proposal, you identify what is the core sector that the government wants to support. Because government will allot funding for more funding for these sections. And without doubt, there is always a constant funding for basic research also. So government will support basic research always. Apart from that, applied research with specific problems is very important. So before sending a proposal, with your area of expertise, bridge the gap with what is the objective of the particular scheme for which you are applying. Right? So this all requires a thorough research, like identifying what are all the agencies to whom you can apply. So there is a lot of background work to be done. Without that, if you're going to write a proposal, certainly it will result in rejection. Right? So it's very important you do your homework. Now let's see how you can write a proposal. Right? It is much different from how you write a publication or you apply for patent also. When you write a proposal, you have to develop a organized thinking. You should be able to visualize your work, right? The outcome of your work with reference to the problem you're going to solve. Then build a logical chain of reasoning, like why you want to do it, how you're going to approach it, which is the best way to solve the problem. See, many people would have attempted the same problem, but what is the issues in the earlier methodologies and what is the new thing that you're going to propose and why you are proposing it? It should have a logical reasoning to every single line you are writing. You need to have a very strategic thinking. Strategic thinking in the sense, a well planned proposal. You have to think of so many factors. You have to think if the way you are suggesting, is it cost effective? Is it practically possible? Will the outcome that whichever you're going to propose, is it possible? And will it be useful? So that way you have to think in a strategic manner so that you will be able to convince the evaluator. So when you write this proposal, you have to capture the attention of your evaluator. He may be tired reading so many proposals. He'll receive kind of 100 proposals. So they may not have, they are all faculties working in different institutions, having so much of workload. And I don't think most of them are paid for doing this evaluator's job. Just like when we review a paper, we are not getting paid. It's just like a social responsibility. So in such a case, think about the evaluator's mental ability. He is already burdened with work in that he has to evaluate your project and there is a deadline for it. So he won't waste time in reading junk. How much ever junk information you write, you can write hundreds of pages, he is not going to read that, right? Even if you're going to write 5-page proposal, write it with complete clarity. So when he runs through your proposal, he needs to get clear answers to these 3 questions. First, about your brilliant idea, that is the world waiting for this idea to be worked out? Which means, what is the benefit to the society out of your idea? Is that problem crucial? That's the first question he will see. If it is not crucial, if it is like the same old story, like I prepared one material, I did hundreds, I'm going to do hundreds of characterization on it, I'm going to find the same thing which another person has found out, he will outright reject it. He won't want to take it even to the next step of reading it again or reading to the methodology part. With the objectives itself, he will wind it off. So your proposal has to be of an area which will be of use to the society, right? Next, is it in line with the societal benefits or the by the funding agency? See, as I told you earlier, every funding agency will have a priority and an objective. He will see if it is matching. Sometimes what happens is your idea may be brilliant, and you have presented in a very systematic and organized way. And if that idea is put into function, it may create wonders. But still, if it is not going to match with the funding agency's objectives, he has to reject it. You can't blame him, right? So when you send your brilliant idea, send it to the exact funding agency. Then once these 2 parts are clear, the third part will be, is the approach you have chosen, like the method in which you're going to work and your background studies and your expected outcome, are they all meaningful and consistent, right? That consistency is very important. Like if you say something in the objective and your methodology says something else and your outcome is something else, then rightfully the evaluator will understand you do not have the patience, or you haven't done the background research, or you don't have the experience to do a project work. So he will understand, though the idea is brilliant, if I'm going to put 10 crores to that idea, there may not be any outcome at all. Of course, not all research work will result in 100% success. There will be failures, but you can't estimate that. So from an evaluator's point of view, he will see if the methods that you are suggesting is clear, is it logical, and is it meaningful as well as consistent. The objective, methodology, and the final outcome, are they consistent with each other? That's the third step. And also the most important one, he will look if the claims you are making, are they valid or are they possible things? Sometimes we may claim of 100% efficiency for a certain device. So the evaluator may know that it's not possible. So if you're going to say that I'm going to make a solar cell out of green synthesis, and it is going to give me 100% efficiency. All you have to do is give me 10 crores. So the evaluator will be having certain amount of sense, right? He will do his research. He'll find out it's not possible. Getting more than 20% of efficiency in solar cell is too hard. So in that you're going to claim something so big like 100% efficiency. It is totally utopian, right? So definitely the evaluator will reject it. So these are the different stages where your proposal will get rejected. So I'll summarize. One is how good or significant your idea is to the world. Is it matching with the funding agency's objectives? Is the approach and method you have chosen logical and consistent? And if the claims are valid, right? Are they good enough or are they valid? Is it practically possible? So this money, if you are not going, your proposal is not going to meet these 4 criteria, they are not going to go to the next level. Right. Okay, now let me get into the technical details of writing a proposal. See, there are so many funding agencies are there. If you look at the funding agencies, each one will have different format. So what I have put out here is a general format. Mostly all the proposals will have this kind of headings which you will have to fill it. One is the objective of your proposal, origin of your proposal, what is the state of art, methodology, budgeting, your work plan or schedule, your proposed outcome or deliverable, the biodata of your guide, the project investigator, and the final one, from where you got this idea, that is references. Now let me just tell you, you all know what is meant by objective, but with my small experience, I can tell you how an objective has to be. Right? What is an objective? It is the mentioning of the specific activity that you are going to do during the stage of a project. So when you write an objective, you can write it in two parts. The first part, the objective has to be the final result. Let me say, for example, maybe I can say an example from my own project. Say I'm going to develop a particular material for cleaning water, for cleaning wastewater. That is my major objective, right? I'm going to develop so and so material, let's say a semiconductor nanomaterial for cleaning wastewater. This is my major objective. Now to achieve this major objective, I have to do many things. Those are my sub-objective, which I can write it in 3 or 4 points. So we don't have to write all the steps, but you can mention, highlight 4 steps in which you will achieve your major objective. In some proposal format, you can see they would have clearly mentioned, like write the major objective, write the sub-objectives. But in many proposal format, you will see it's nothing like that. They just ask you for an objective. So when they just ask you for objective, it is always a good practice to write in this way. Write your major objective. Below that, you can write in 3 or 4 points what are the different small objectives that you are going to, different small targets which you need to achieve the major objective. Such as being a material scientist, I can talk to you in point of my experience. Others who are not engineers or from science background, maybe you can try to put it in your subject area. You can make a connection. Say for a sub-objective, okay, what was my major objective? That is, I'm going to make a new material for cleaning wastewater. And what will be my sub-objectives? First, how will I make the material? Let's say I'm going to make this new semiconductor material by a certain type of self-assembly technique. Okay, that's my first sub-objective. Next, Now, after making that particular material, I have to study it. I have to study the different properties of this material, isn't it? Because only if I study it, I will know if the target is achieved. So the second step will be studying that material so that it satisfies the cleaning properties. Third step will be I have to test my material for the cleaning process, whatever I have suggested for wastewater cleaning, right? So now I have a major objective and 3 small sub-objectives. So it will be like all the 3 sub-objectives are focused towards what I told in my major objective. It's not completely a different one. They all mean the same thing, but I have split it up. Okay. And also, if possible, you have to, if you are more quantitative, that is, if you are able to give accurate values, that is, say your objective is to achieve something of 80% efficiency or 50% efficiency, it will be good enough. It will tell the evaluator that you have a clear vision rather than saying, I'm going to achieve a high efficiency or better efficiency, improved efficiency, enhanced efficiency. If you use the term like I'm going to have I have a clear objective. Let's say I need 50% efficiency. That gives more value to your objective. You can say it qualitatively also, like in terms of high, improved, enhanced, but I would suggest, if possible, make it quantitative. That statistics is important. Then your objective has to be clear, specific, achievable. Okay, don't say objectives which are not achievable. See where you are, what are all the facilities available with you. Don't say objectives which are highly impossible, right? Don't write the proposal with a point of view that you are in some exceptional institution in America. If you are there, fine, you can write, but know where you are and what you have. What are all your facilities around you, and then write the objective, right? And possibly the objective should specify your expected result. As I told you, is it 50% efficiency or it's 80% efficiency or even 100% efficiency? Specifies the boundaries of your activity. What do we mean by boundaries here? Let's say my one of my sub objective was synthesis of a particular material with certain properties. So it's not that I can test all the properties, or I cannot test make a certain material in all the 100 different ways that are existing. So I need to be specific there. I will be making, let's say, what is the example I can tell? Yeah, I'll be making silicon wafers doped with boron by varying the quantity of boron from 1% to 10% by physical layer deposition. Now my objective is very clear. The evaluator will know, okay, this is what the person is going to do. He is not vague about it. He has a very clear vision. If I had told that I'm going to make the silicon wafer by physical layer deposition, that's a quite vague answer, because silicon wafer is already studied. Now, by what way you are going to do it? Are you going to dope it with something new, or you're going to dope it with boron or any other phosphor, arsenic? What is that you're going to do? That answer will not be clear for the evaluator. So your objective has to be very, very specific. And I have always heard this one argument. Even I had asked that argument myself. See, it is a research proposal. You need to try 100 things to say which will give you the best result, isn't it? So how can you be so specific that it is boron what I'm going to do? But this is where the evaluator wants you to do the background research. Already there will be published papers where they would have done the same thing in 100 different ways. See, so you have to do the background research and identify why instead of arsenic or instead of some other chemical, you want boron for your experiment, or why you are choosing silicon for your experiment, or why you are using the method called as physical layer deposition. Okay, so that is where your background research comes in. So the objective may look small to you, it will have only 4 sentences, but still you will have to read a lot to write a proper objective. You cannot write just like that. Okay, there are hundreds of methods. I prefer to choose boron because I like the alphabet B. That's not a good thing. You should do your background research and only write the objectives, right? After that, maybe you can do lots of trial. Boron may fail and you get success with arsenic. But still, when you put boron or when you specify something in your objective, do background research and then put it. Okay. The next, I hope I'm keeping with time. Yeah. Next part of the proposal is, mostly you would have heard this, like, what is the origin of your proposal? What we mean by origin of a proposal is, what motivated you to write the proposal? What was the motivation factor behind the idea that you have? It can be a problem statement. For example, the problem I'm going to work is in treatment of wastewater. Now, why do I want to treat wastewater? I want to treat wastewater because this wastewater is causing so much of problems in the environment. People in the society are suffering because of it. So now that is my problem statement. That's my problem and I want to solve it. That becomes the main origin of my proposal or the motivation factor behind the proposal. And this one, I cannot just make a statement and leave it. I cannot just say, see, wastewater is coming out of industry and many people are suffering because of that. I need to validate my problem with support, right? Supportive documents should be there, either in form of research papers, in form of statistics. That is, you can say let's say lakhs of people are suffering, that particular area is suffering because of the wastewater released from a certain industry. There will be lots of statistical information available in newspapers or articles, or even in internet. If you browse, you can get so much of information. So your problem, you can define your problem, then give sufficient support for that problem and its impact on the society, right? That is very important. That's where you have to do the background research and add up whatever support you are able to gather. If it is in the form of statistics, it is always helpful. Statistics with reference. Don't just put numbers by guesswork. Put numbers which are already reported. Let's say hundreds of people are suffering because of this fluorine in the water, or whatever waste lead is coming out of the industrial waste and it's causing brain tumor to the children who are born in a certain area. So that is a problem. You have to put in what are all the sufficient background research in it, what are all the articles reported about that. You can add all that in your origin proposal. So you need to have a point out to the societal impact of the problem and a well organized and systematic research findings that justifies your motivation, right? Something would have inspired you to take up a problem, right? So what that is, that's what the evaluators want to know. And also the same problem may be studied by many people. Now, cleaning wastewater, everyone wants to clean the wastewater because everyone knows the impact of it in society. So, what is the newness in your motivation? See, everyone wants to clean that. There will be already 100 ways would have been proposed for cleaning it. Now you have to think about what are all the different ways. You need to do your research on different ways which others have suggested. And to your good luck, there will never be a solution which is 100% efficient. There is always a loophole which you can identify. So your brilliance lies in identifying what is the loophole in their solutions. Some might have suggested a method to clean wastewater with 100% efficiency, but that method may be extremely costly, and it may take long duration to um, process it, do that water treatment. So those are all loopholes. So what your job is, now you have to find a material or a method which will uh, reduce the time, which will reduce the cost, which will be which may give you a better efficiency. So that way you need to think, what is the novelty of your particular work? Problem may be common, right? There may be 100 ways to solve it, but why? What is the significance, or what is the um, advantage of your particular method or your particular proposal idea, right? These 4 steps you need to identify. Next, what is novelty? We all heard this term many times. Novel materials are there in every publication. You see, we'll read this particular term. This term has become so common that in some journals you can see in uh, the editor itself would have told you, please stop using the term novel in it, right? We all feel whatever we do is novel, right? But exactly what is novelty? Novelty is nothing but it's a innovation, newness that you bring to your technology, either in the form of a material, in the form of a approach, or in the form of the solution that you suggest to a problem. Any innovation you do which is different from what has been done already, you can call it as novelty or newness of your work. So how to convince the evaluators of the novelty of your work, right? Everyone can claim what the work I have suggested is novel. They can say that whatever I'm telling right now, it's the first time it's being done, it's the first time it's being reported, right? So how the evaluator will be convinced of that? He doesn't want to go and do the background research. He expects you to do that, right? That is where you would have always heard if you write a proposal, you will see one heading called as state of art. What we mean by state of art is what is happening in the particular area of your proposal right now. Who are all working in that particular area, both nationally and internationally? Who are all the experts in that particular area, and what have they uh, achieved so far? That's what they want to know in this particular section called as state of art. And yeah, one more thing is you don't have to keep on writing the term, my material is novel, my method is novel, the approach I'm using is novel 100 times. The kind of way in which you write or build your proposal, it has to speak for itself. Without using the term novel, you can bring out the novelty of your work, right? That is very important. If you write the term novel 100 times, it won't help you, nor the evaluators will be interested. Rather, your proposal, the origin of the proposal and the state of art which you write has to bring out the novelty of your work, right? So this particular heading called as state of art will have generally 2 subdivisions. One is national level and other is international level. So here what you can do is, the best way is you can check the many what I have seen is they write a review, a research review, or literature review in this particular heading. Rather than doing that, what you can do is you can browse the website of different institutions, mostly premier institutions you can take, such as IITs, IIScs, the research institutes like Raman Research Institute, any research institute you know. And also sometimes even the state central government universities, or also deemed universities, no problem. Identify, suppose you are from physics department or from chemistry department, identify what are all the people belonging there doing in research. There will be somebody working in the same area as you or the area you are proposing. So you can look at their papers. There will be some achievement for them. So write about that. So the so and so person and their research group are working in this particular problem, and this is what they have achieved so far. That you can list out in a set of points. Let's say 10 points or 15 points you can write. Just go through all the websites of the premium institutions. You will get lots of information. You will know who is working in that particular area. Exactly whatever the problem you have suggested may be suggested by something they are working on itself. So that information you can write. So see, this won't affect the novelty of your work just by saying 10 different research groups are working in this problem. No, it will only tell the evaluator that you have thoroughly researched your topic. And when the same problem right now, if it is worked on by 10 different research groups, it means that is important, right? If you look at any premier institution now, they are working in environment and energy applications. It is because that area is of prime importance right now. So naturally, it will give an understanding to the evaluator. Even if he is from a different expertise area, he will identify that, okay, if this problem is worked by all the premium institutions, or let's say IIScs are working in it, or ICER is working in it, it means it is significant, right? Sometimes that is how the evaluator will think. So that's a way of writing this particular part called as state of art. Or sometimes in proposal format, it will also called as the literature review, right? And what they mean by that is internationally and nationally, who are all working in this particular problem. That's what they want to know, right? Okay. So if you write a good state of art, the evaluators will be convinced that you know what you are speaking, right? You know the problem well. You know the significance of your problem well. That will be the impression you make on the evaluator. Next, he will get the knowledge that you are aware of the latest developments in the particular area. It also builds a credibility that if you are proposing a particular work, it is you have done your thorough research. So it builds more credibility to the work that you are proposing. It kind of the evaluators are funding your research, right? The agency is going to fund it. So they want to know they are funding the right person. They don't want to spend crores on a person who's not trustworthy, isn't it? So this trustworthiness they learn only from your report. Before they see you for a presentation, it's your report that will make them judge you. So a well-written state of art will build the credibility, and that is very important. And this is one section which you won't see in your proposal format. Nobody has a heading called as preliminary studies, but that is the most crucial one, isn't it? So when you propose an area, how will the evaluator judge your expertise in that area? One, it can be that you may have a good publication in that particular area. That's fine. That's good enough. Which means you have done some kind of work in that proposed area, right? Put some result. They won't ask you. You can put it yourself, right? Even if there is no section in the origin of your proposal or in the state of art column, you can add the results of your work. Sometimes it will be like you're going to propose a new area out of your expertise. How will the evaluator know that you are truly passionate about what you're proposing? Or whatever you claim, does it have any outcome at all? To make the evaluator or convince the evaluator, if you do some kind of trial studies, especially in our university, most of them are getting seed money funding. So this seed money funding can be used for, it's a few thousand rupees, but that is sufficient for doing the preliminary studies for a proposal. You can do some basic analysis. You can at least do a trial run. take it, you take your material or whatever you have result you have got to take it some premier institution, do some proper analysis of your work, prove your application at least on a trial basis, and put that result in your proposal. It has a major significance. It will show that you didn't make a proposal just like that out of air, right? It's just because somebody is pressurizing you, you write many things, claim many things without knowing what it is. This happens because every institution is sending so many proposals to the agencies. How will they judge your proposal? So if you put some kind of preliminary studies, they will have the knowledge and understanding that, okay, this person has done the work already. He has some results. It is with that result he claims to have a successful final end product. The evaluator will be convinced that you do have knowledge in that area and your claims are authentic. You're not just like that making some random claims. Okay, so that is why, though this section is not there in any proposal, I would always suggest put the preliminary studies in the proposal, right? Next step is also very, very important, that is methodology. Many people tend to ignore this part. Okay, they will think, who's going to read this methodology? There are so many steps involved in the methodology. No, this step is also important. And it is also the most difficult part because you're proposing a new area, you have to visualize your work completely. It's not the easy thing. You have to be capable of predicting each and every step that you're going to do once the project is granted to you. How from the starting stage to the end product, what will be the every single step that you're going to take. It should be very clearly explained. It should that can happen only if you are able to visualize your work on the whole. Before you do, you have to imagine, right? Imagination is very important here. I of course agree that when you are in a proposing stage, you do not know the outcome. Still, you have to imagine. Sometimes this imagination should be validated with proper logical reasoning and supportive documents, such as other publications, right? So clearly, what is the exact method you're going to follow? What are the single specified steps that you're going to take? Everything should be well written in the methodology part. It is purely imaginary, but you have to do it. Your imagination supported by previous studies, either which you have done or somebody else have done. So step by step, clear and concise movement of how you're going to achieve your target or how you will move from the starting stage to the end product stage, you have to clearly explain it. It should be explained in a way such that what after finishing a work, how do you write in a thesis or a publication? That's how your methodology has to be, right? So include all step-by-step details of your design and development plan. Include the specific information such as what is the temperature you're going to keep, what is the treatment you're going to do for developing such a structure, what are all the measurements. If you're going to develop an application, what are all the going to be the measurement? Is it going to be a compact one? What is the size that you're going to keep? All these information has to be there. Though you may vary after getting your project, you cannot always stick to the methodology because you had imagined it, right? So sometimes it may fail. So in that case, you can be adaptable, you can change it. But when you write it in your proposal with the supporting data, you have to very clearly mention. If I'm going to do the treatment at 100 degrees Celsius, write that there, this particular thing will be treated at 100 degrees Celsius. Don't just say that this will be treated at high temperature. That's a vague way of writing a methodology. So you have to be very clear. So evaluators do expect you to write a thorough research methodology with no vagaries, okay? And it will be best if you can write the methodology in terms of flow charts and diagrams, any design models you have, a prototype model you have. If you are from engineering backgrounds, you can put that also. Your illustrative schematic sketch you can give. The final outcome of my particular technique, this is how it is going to be. Or if you're going to design an engine, if you're going to design some kind of a machinery, you can propose a design with all the measurements, all details to it, right? So methodology part is very significant. The next one is work plan. I wouldn't say that this is, I mean, work plan, they do know it is going to vary a bit after making the proposal. When doing the work, definitely there will be changes in the schedule. But you have to be, you shouldn't make any utopian claims in the work plan. Like you will finish the complete work in the first 6 months, the second 6 months you're going to make a patent out of it, you're going to make a publishing out of it. No, don't do that. Stick to a work plan which is practical. Think about it. How much time to study this work I will need, how much time I will be spending on designing it, how much time I will be taking for fabricating it, and how much time I will take for making the final end product, and finally taking it to the market or making it into a publishable thing. So make only practical claims. Do not make it impractical, right? Don't have any high claims which are not possible. Think about what are all the issues you will face when you are starting with the project, and frame your work plan accordingly. Neither make it too simple, don't make it too high. Think well and write this part. So normally work plans will be as quarters or in a half yearly. So 4 month or 6 month schedule is fine. This is just one small example of one of the proposal which I had sent. So this is one way of writing a work plan, like a chart. So the period will be like first 6 months, what we are going to do, the next, within 12 months, what will be my achievement, 15 months, 18 months, 21, 24 months. So this is a 2-year project. So we have split it up into 6 months time. And again, some agencies, they will specify the time. Okay, every 3 months, what you're going to do, give your target for a 3-month period. Some will say 6-month period. So accordingly, you can vary. This is one way in the form. Other is through a bar chart, you can always tell. So you can see here, this is, I don't know which project. So I have given time for literature survey, for getting all the equipments that I want to do this work, for doing the designing part, for developing theoretical models, for determining different properties. Then you also have to be very aware of the budgeting part, right? So each and everything that you are going to buy, or what are all the things in which you want to spend the money, it should be clearly specified in a table form. Right? Normally, the format will be predicted. So you can see here, it has been split into equipment, the manpower salary, consumables, contingencies, the overhead to the institutions, and what the total cost, also the travel amounts needed. Again, it will be split into 3 years or 2 year, whatever is the duration of your project. This all will be clear in your proposal. Only thing is, you have to be careful in specifying what is the amount. But I don't think this place, unless you make very huge mistakes, there won't be any issues here. List out, then you will also have to list out. If you are asking for 10 equipments, you will have to list out what are all the different equipments that you need, along with the model that you're going to choose, what is the cost of it, and many proposals also ask for a quotation, right? From the company, they need what is the maximum cost for that particular equipment. Only then they will sanction it. So before writing proposal, we should have the you should contact the companies which are, or the dealers who are providing with the equipment, get a quotation from them and attach that along with your proposal. Some agencies don't ask for it. If they do ask, you have to supply it. And the final part of the proposal is always what is the deliverable or what is the outcome of your proposal, right? So when we say deliverable, they have to be highly specified. Like what I told you, this particular material will give me 54% efficiency. That is one highly specified deliverable. Now your result may little bit vary, but they will watch at the end if you have really satisfied this, right? But with your research or background research, you should be capable of say telling, if I'm following this methodology, if I'm going to use this particular material, if I use this particular design, this is the efficiency of my final device. That is your deliverable or outcome. So normally, like each task, they expect a deliverable. Like say, if I'm going to fabricate something, I will be making a 1 nanometer thickness film. But that is the outcome of what is my fabrication technology. Then with this 1 nanometer thickness film, I am going to make a solar cell. And because of the various way in which I made the solar cell, it is going to give me 50% efficiency, right? Then I would have reduced the different thermal losses by 10%. These are all called as deliverables or outcomes, right? And do not claim highly unpractical deliverables. Limit yourself. Know where you are, read other research papers, and then make your deliverables or outcomes. Evaluators are not very strict about it, but they do identify if you are going to make large claims like 100% efficiency or super efficient fluid. No, don't make any such claims. Stick to a limit and let that limit come out of some kind of a reference. Don't imagine the outcome. Okay, you should have a logical reasoning why you are saying it is 10% efficiency or 50% efficiency, right? Then this is also a very important part. Mostly what we do in case of references is people don't care about it. We just copy from some journals and put it up. Don't do that. It is very important that this references should be very neatly given in the format. You know that for publications, every publisher will have a defined format, right? Like Harvard style, standard book format, etc. So proposals don't claim any format. You can choose whichever way you want to represent. But when you write the references, all from 1 to 50 or 1 to 100 references should be in the same forward. If you're following the Harvard style, stick to it. And give it, it is also an important part. Evaluate. We think that nobody looks into the reference part, but they do look into it. So present it neatly, uniformly, following the same format. And also, don't go wrong in this area. Like, don't give references which are out of context. Because if the evaluator is going to recheck it and he finds what you have given is not correct, then it may affect you, right? Not all do that, but some people do check back your reference and read them. So give the exact references, give the exact numbering, and also you should give both old as well as latest references. Such as some works may have been done long ago. Okay, so some they would have done the studies in 1960s, and then that area might have been dormant, and suddenly it is improving in his quality, or some need is there because of which you have to take up that area of research and do it now. Try to find some latest research work because somebody would have of course done it, right? So many people are doing research. So try to find out what if you are probably going to propose it in 2020, at least get a paper in 2019 or 2018, one or two also fine. Okay, so this reference part is important. You have to refer to both olden works as well as the latest work. And if you have any expertise in that particular area, refer to your papers also. So then that will add more credibility. The evaluators will know that, okay, so and so the proposer has expertise in the areas. Right? These are the things to remember when you write a reference. And finally, I think it's the last slide. It's very important to give the finishing touch. So I just add a few points here. Avoid cut, copy, paste. Don't copy things from some other publication and put it in your proposal. It may even banning of the proposer. Okay. So whatever you write it in your own words. Write it from your heart so that it is original and more significant. It adds value. Avoid all kinds of plagiarism works. Avoid grammatical mistakes, because if you write in a bad language, of course we are all, though we have different mother tongues, we have to write in English. Okay, English is a very simple language, not difficult like our own language. So avoid grammatical mistakes and sentence formations as much as possible. Read it, reread it again and again. Avoid these mistakes. Avoid using bad sentences. Don't use high vocabulary. Like if you use capital letters in between, suddenly, they all matters. So present your proposal in a good language. Follow the rules of grammar. Uh, make good sentences which are simple and clear. Okay. Because otherwise the evaluator will definitely get, he won't have the mental stability to read it. Right, he is going to look at 100 other proposals. In that, if you send something with a poor language, definitely he will want to reject it. Right, nobody is paying him to do the evaluator's job, and he is not your guide to correct you. Right, the only thing he will do is he will happily reject it so that he finishes his job. So don't give a chance for that. Then stick to the format in a best way possible. If they have given you a formatting style, like they have given you font size and whichever font you are going to use, the Times New Roman or Cambria, whatever, stick to it. Stick to it throughout the proposal. Don't write one paragraph in one font and another paragraph in another font. Always stick to one font and one size. Okay, that formatting is very important. Avoid vague sentences. What do you mean by vague sentences? Don't write, I may achieve this 100% efficiency, or I am thinking of doing it in this way. No, don't use such vague sentences. Be very clear and abstract, right? You can say, this particular method will give me 50% efficiency, or this particular technique is expected to give me 50% efficiency because of the previous study done in this. So these statements are very clear. Neither you are claiming it as to be the best one, or you are not saying that this is the may happen or may not happen. It's not a weather report, right? So write a proposal with very clear and short statements. Then your profile of the PI, should always be updated. It should highlight what is the thrust area of your research work, the significant publications. Even if you have 100 or 200 publication, you don't have to put it all in your proposal. You may put only that which is important for that work. You can mention that also. You may have some 10 publication, the area that you are proposing, you can put that. That is the best way. Then finding a collaborator, right? Finding a collaborator is important to a certain extent. And when you find a collaborator, what you have to do is find a collaborator who has a similar area of interest as your proposal is. The person can be from any department, like he can be from a maths and a physics professor can write a proposal, or a maths and mechanical engineer can write a proposal. But it should be like whatever you're proposing, both of them should have a contribution. Do not bring a collaborator just because he is from some premier institution. The collaborator can be from any institution. Doesn't matter. Only thing that matters is his area of expertise. Right? So you have to choose that wisely. And mostly, most of the project schemes I know, they ask for PhD holders, but some don't. Okay, so that we have to read through the conditions of different funding agency and only decide. Anyway, that is not a major thing. Now, after writing it and submitting it ahead of deadline is important. And I would say in the waiting period, see, it takes months and sometimes years for a proposal to be evaluated, reviewed, called for a presentation, and then get rejected or accepted. In the meanwhile, I'll say don't sleep, move ahead with another proposal. You never know what will happen. It may get rejected also, it may get accepted also. So if you're going to wait for 1 year and get the result and then write another proposal, it's a waste of time. So after you submit one proposal, you write another proposal which is much better than what you had written first, right? So keep writing. So I would like to again end up with the same person's quote. This person has failed hundreds of times, and that's why he succeeds. The same way, write several proposals, maybe 10 proposals, 15 proposals. In each proposal, you learn something, and at some stage, you'll start getting acceptance also, right? So thank you for patiently listening to my talk. Any kind of interaction, I'll be happy to make. I think I have talked a lot. Yeah, so any questions?
Participants, if you have any questions, you can ask now.
No questions, all of them are sleeping.
No. Thank you, ma'am. Nice presentation. I have a small question that already I have asked in our department. So the same things. We are prepared the proposal. So we focused on aim and we have prepared the proposal. So how we can check that is updated one and presently it's a good one, or we may go through the number of articles whatever published in the recent years. So whether the proposal is in a good or is a still it's more need to improve the proposal, or it is that is good that level. How we can confirm that level? Is there any idea to confirm that we are prepared proposal is a good one or need to improve?
Yeah, we can, of course. What you can, one thing I would suggest is, if once you propose an area, check, maybe sometimes what is that we would have returned the proposal in one particular area, and that area might have been outdated also. That work would have been already done and by many people. Now, first step what we can do is this work new? Okay. So that we will learn from the research publications. Once we identify with other research works, sometimes the same material would have been done by many people. Then we can look for what is the improvement in this particular material that we can do. One is like, is you are also physicist, by either by doping or combining different methods. Already in the olden papers, they would have told that they would have improved the efficiency by 10%. Now you can think about by how I can improve the efficiency by still more, by still 10 more percent.
Okay.
What is the way I have? So that we learn from the research literature review. Then we can see how much of impact it has on society. That is very important.
Okay.
If the work has lots of impact on society, the evaluators will consider it better, because more funding will be in that area. They will be allotted funds, right? Every year government allots certain fund for the agency for sanctioning a certain sector of work.
Okay.
So mostly nowadays it is environment and energy is what government is interested in. So in those areas, they will have, let's say, from out of the 10 crores or 100 crores of fund they have, they will say 50% is for this particular sector.
Okay.
If we are in that sector, there are more chances for us. That's
Okay.
one way.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand.
Okay.
So
Any other questions? Thank you, dear ma'am, for the wonderful and very informative presentation. Thank you for explaining the important aspects of research project proposal. You have filled our brain with ideas. I'm pretty sure that the extensive knowledge you shared regarding how to write a successful project proposal is definitely beneficial to all the researchers. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Now, as we come to the end of the meeting, I invite Mrs. Swati, Research Scholar, Department of Physics, to propose the vote of thanks.
A warm good afternoon to all. It's my pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of research scholars. I would like to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor and Registrar for their constant support and encouragement. I extend my thanks to Dr. D. Rajashekhar, Director, Center for Research, and Dr. Hella Ma'am, Faculty Coordinator, for conducting this Research Connect Forum. A special thanks to Dr. Anita Warrier Ma'am, today's speaker, for her wonderful talk on the art of writing successful research project proposal. I thank all the participants and research scholars for their valuable participations. I thank you all once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I think we can leave, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.